Welcome to the Andy Brant Bernard Show with
Hackmaster Ralph Tove Basham, MD.
myself and
Tim Lammers.
Tim Lammers is with us. He decided to come on nice and early.
Tim, you have that bar lighting there. It kind of looks nice.
Yeah,
like
thank you. I'm not sipping on anything. I only got coffee early in the morning here, so there you go.
Yeah, I'm sort of sporting the Procol Harum look, a whiter shade of pale.
Yeah, when I was sitting over at the
Whoa.
spot at the end of the table there, it was, I looked very ghost-like. The lighting in there isn't great.
And for folks who are wondering about Ralph's reference, and a whiter shade of pale.
That's sort of a Procol.
It's a classic song.
A classic song, along with Conquistador was their other hit, I think. So.
I know. And it's funny. I have to mention quickly because there is a live version of A Whiter Shade of Pale. It's like in Denmark or something. One of the best live renditions of a song
really?
I have ever heard. And there goes my bar lighting, Ralph.
Yeah, just shorted out or something.
It's last call lighting here. Last call lighting.
There you go. Well, so it's a great rendition of the song. And apparently in foreign countries, they must have a lot more hits because how do they play an entire concert? I know Conquistador is on the set list too, but it's apparently, again, everybody knows or knew of their songs way back when.
So is it true that European music tastes are more accepting or they enjoy more music than we do for whatever reason?
I guess so. And the funny thing is, a lot of European artists, they want to make it big over here. It's in the States where they must really make their money. So apparently it is more eclectic over there or something. But again, if you ask me to name all of Procol Harum songs, I could only name those two. That's for sure.
I'm the same.
Well, I mean, it used to be that America was all the money was, and once you got big in America, then you could tour in other places. You could tour in Asia and that sort of thing, and make infinity money. But these days, I don't know how true that is. I think it's everything's so interconnected right now, or I guess a couple of years ago, I don't really pay that much attention to the scene, but the thing was K-pop. People in America, they did not care that they couldn't understand a word that was being said. They didn't care that they'd never see him live because they don't come here. They stay in Korea, but they spent so much money on these K-pop idols. Yeah, it's insane.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, there's a lot of bands and we do know their songs and you can't understand them in concert.
That is very true. Yeah.
Doesn't matter if they're singing in a foreign language or not.
Like Guar.
Oh, well, yeah. I think they kind of lean into that, though.
So that distorted, over modulated kind of. It was on at the post office the other day when I stopped by. I said, it's a little harsh for the post office. Yeah, they play it in the back area,
trying to keep you awake, I guess.
I guess.
And the other thing, what was I going to say? Oh, the other thing I don't get. Why people pay to see it? I mean, and we're talking thousands of people. This ADM or whatever. This
EDM, electronic dance music. Yes.
Shows you how much I know about it. I call it ADM. How people pay big money to go and watch a disc jockey spin. Right? I guess it's the whole atmosphere of being packed in like sardines.
Yeah, it's about being at the rave, not the music itself.
God, I guess. But
what I don't get is well, so it's like I would never do it, but I can understand why some people would like that kind of atmosphere, the loud music and the lights flashing and all that kind of stuff. What I don't get is why these DJs get paid so much money.
Because so many people go to the rave. I
guess it's just like, they get money by default. They, you get 10% of the revenue. 50,000 people show up, you're going to get a lot of money. But it's very strange that venues are willing to pay these people such a big cut for very little work.
Because it's just all supply and demand. We pay our entertainers too much. Yes, in my opinion. Now, so that's a very liberal
I completely agree with you. And I got my bar lighting back. I was fiddling around with stuff, and I think it's a little bit better now. But yeah, I mean, you're right. And we talked about this recently with the Kirk Cousins thing. I mean, again, it's another form of entertainment. And at what point is it going to be the absolute limit? It's always comes down to, well, hey, wait a second. They paid this guy this much money, and his statistics are nowhere near my statistics. doesn't matter that I have a torn Achilles. I'm going to come back. I'm going to be better than ever. And at what point is it just going to be too much? I mean, obviously, it's just going to be a situation where the cost is passed on to the consumer. Right?
Well, it's long past that point, I would say. That's why you pay $15 for a beer.
Well, and Netflix, though, too. I mean, yeah, so they learned the lesson that, okay, you're paying $200 million to produce a movie with The Rock and Gal Gadot and Ryan Reynolds. And, okay, well, how do we pay for it? Well, we better introduce a pay tier where you're going to have to pay premium to not get commercials. Otherwise, take the lower one with commercials.
Yeah.
So we're back to regular television is basically.
There we go. They can't give up the traditional model of money making in media because now we have commercials back at it, and the commercials are I don't know pointless. You don't hear them. You never hear them. They can play, but you just pick up your phone, start doing something else, look at something else until the phone, and then you never hear them. You never even know what they're about.
Yeah, that's the thing is back in the 80s and 90s, a commercial comes on. I mean, unless you want to leave the room, your option is just to sit there and watch it.
Right.
But nowadays, you reach into your pocket and you can be browsing the web, playing a game, whatever.
That's right.
I got 5 minutes. Yeah, let's check on my Farmville or whatever the hell.
I got to check on my bookie here.
Yeah.
My numbers came in today.
Yeah, and a little tip for streaming, Amazon, and I know there was a controversy about it because Amazon Prime Video said we are going to add commercials to our programming. And that they sent me a notice saying, well, if you want to pay $3 more a month, you can do this. I thought, you know what, whatever. I'm just going to leave it roll. As it turns out, they're pre-roll ads prior to the program. Who cares? They're not even interrupting the program.
Like trailers.
They have like 60-second deals prior to a movie or a show. It's not like Hulu where they actually do have ad breaks.
Yeah.
Like a television.
They have forever.
Well, there's an interesting observation. They are allowing commercial breaks in movies, yet they will not allow an intermission in a movie that's long. So commercials will break up that story far more than a designed intermission.
Yeah,
or intermission you cut for.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and you got the editors complaining like with Killers of the Flower Moon when theaters overseas put in their own intermission. Now, the next opportunity I get to talk with one of the directors, because again, it comes down to directors that are huge with clout that say, I want the 4-hour movie like Martin Scorsese. I cannot wait to talk to a director for the next 3-hour film and say, okay, so you get what you want in the theater. At what point is it going to bleed over into streaming where you're going to demand that unless you watch this movie without taking a break, you're not going to watch our movie?
Yep.
You know, because right now you take the breaks whenever you want. You can pause it 10 times if you want.
That's right.
There
you go.
And I do.
Yeah. Well, of course, as you get older, you pause it more and more, particularly as a man.
This is true. Also, having a 2-year-old.
Yeah. Are you, Tim? Are you getting different interviews or better interviews or longer interviews since you have your gig with Forbes?
Oh yeah.
I'm contributor for Forbes, and I talk about that a lot, and I'm plugging that. But yeah, a lot of interviews, a lot. I talked with 5 different folks yesterday. Tomorrow I have 3 more interviews. So yeah, and then I got some set up for next week already. So yeah, definitely has opened some doors. So yeah, it's great. I mean, for them, I mean, I'm pursuing what I think is interesting because I'm on a self-publishing model. So yeah, I can pretty much pursue who I think is going to be hot or whatever. You're obviously not grabbing folks from left field, but yeah, it is presented some big opportunities. That's for sure. So yeah, but also too, I mean, I've been doing this for a long, long time. So fortunately I have the contacts and all that sort of stuff in place already. So it's not like an automatic with anything. So it kind of comes down to the publication you're writing for, but also the amount of experience you bring to it and the people you know. It always comes down to who you know, I guess, too. So,
for sure.
Someone's getting a phone call.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry. What?
No, that's okay. And it's It's like watching streaming.
Turn the watch off. Turn the watch off.
Whenever you have to.
Turn the watch off. Turn the watch. There, that solves that problem.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, a big movie on streaming, and I know I mentioned it on the morning show last week, but it is number one. Speaking of Amazon, which I watched after the pre-roll ad, Roadhouse.
Okay.
Yeah, that's such a weird thing to remake.
You know, they updated it to today. What they did was, I do believe, and again, I saw the movie once, the '89 movie with Patrick Swayze.
Yep.
The only thing I remember is It's My Way or the Highway. And honest to God, I can't remember anything from that movie. But apparently he was a martial artist in that one. Here, they implement the UFC angle.
Mm-hmm. That's a new thing.
Well, why wouldn't? Yeah.
You know, which is great. And the odd part about that is Jake Gyllenhaal is the ex-UFC fighter in it. Conor McGregor, who is the UFC star, I guess still, even though he broke his leg 3 years ago, he doesn't consider himself retired, but they bring him in for the UFC fan appeal. And you never see him in the octagon. So that's why. And the guy, I will say, man, he has a great presence in this movie, and he's funny. And I think he's got a career ahead of him in films when he does eventually, you know, quote unquote, retire. Because again, right now, I mean, I think the guy, that's where he thrived. That's where he really made his name. And I would imagine he wants to get back in there, but he's fine in movies right now. I'm telling you, with this one in particular.
You can make more money as an actor than you can be as a UFC fighter. And if the professional wrestlers can make it, so can the UFC fighters. They can make it. And if they have any personality at all, that crowd will just love to see him in movies. Yeah. Certainly.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing, you know, John Cena, I really love the guy, man. Mm-hmm. I think he is so funny in this movie called Ricky Stenicki, another Amazon original release. You know, it seems like a natural progression for him, like guys of The Rock, to take a step. When they first take a step outside of the ring, they do action movies, right? Because they got the physical, they're built, and they got the wherewithal to do that sort of role. If they're lucky, and if they become a big hit, then they can, you know, get their agents to say, well, let's try something a little bit different. And before you know it, The Rock is wearing a tutu in a movie about the Tooth Fairy, you know, and you know, it's a big risk because obviously they can look really foolish and they could flop, but they've been very successful. The Rock has been successful. John Cena has shown, especially with Ricky Stenicki, the guy can be really funny. And then next thing you know it, he's standing in front of a camera at the Oscars, supposedly nude, holding a big envelope in front of, you know, and protecting himself. And he actually, again, a skit that could flop, but actually he's really funny. So again, I love seeing that because again, you're right, Ralph. They're used to performing.
Yeah, it is the ultimate entertainment. Yep. And that's exactly what they do. And when I watched that as a kid, it was an act, and they do a good job at it. And some of them are better than others, and they can succeed as actors in movies and in entertainment.
Yeah, and unlike the UFC thing, I mean, Conor McGregor, they're not part of it is show, but man,
nothing like professional wrestling.
Yeah, beating the tar out of each other. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. I've never really gotten into it just because it is so incredibly, well, at least from what I've seen, brutal.
Well, it can be, but there's been more deaths in boxing than in UFC. So you're absolutely right. It's a violent kind of a thing. It can be just very bloody in some respects, but you know, and sometimes it can be 5 seconds and they're submitted and that's the end of it. So
yeah, that's true.
It's an interesting thing. The last time I watched it, it was too much. I'm done. The UFC's off the list.
Do you watch it, Andy? UFC?
I have never. No.
Yeah, it's interesting, and like the matches are shorter, and but it's, I don't know. It's turned into boxing pretty much. They just hit each other. It's getting old, and I don't like it. So
yeah, I'm sure people, you know, fans can explain the merits, but to me, I mean, you look at a guy like Conor McGregor. He's done his record's like 22-6-0. 19 of those wins have come by knockout.
Yeah.
Not surprisingly, because he is. You look at him in Roadhouse. I mean, you can see how built this guy is.
Yeah.
It's scary, and Jake Gyllenhaal too, man. I mean, he really worked out to get himself into shape for this. So yeah, I mean, again, I you guys can explain it to me. I'd never have seen the sense in boxing even of striking each other in the head, because you got to believe that with the CTE or whatever. You never hear about it with boxing. You hear about it with the NFL, but in boxing.
But boxing UFC definitely. Well, boxing it had CTE before we knew what CTE was,
right?
Because boxing has definitely fallen off in popularity by massive amounts since its peak was probably what, like the 60s, maybe
70s.
Yeah.
Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, I mean, and CTE wasn't even
Tyson.
coined until it had to have been like the 90s, right?
Yeah.
So,
but before that, they called them punch drunk, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
You're talking about Amazon. Next week is the release. On the 11th is the release of Fallout.
Oh yeah,
and that is this. Yeah, I reloaded the game. I've been going through the game again just to refresh myself on some of the graphics and some of the not so much the story, but the actual graphics
and everything.
But the graphics, because they've done such a good job of building this future retro world.
That's basically takes place if the bombs had fallen in the 50s, which basically froze America in 1950, but as ruins, of course. So it takes place in the future, but no one has really built anything since the 50s because everything's radioactive hellhole. So it's like you're going around all these 50s diners and stuff, fighting off mutants and using plasma weapons. It's a cool juxtaposition for sure.
And they've done a very good job of creating this. All of the graphic. I mean, I just watched the intro to it, just the intro, and they just have everything is so 50s-ish. Whether it's the fonts that they use and the graphics, whether it's the design, it's a very interesting thing what they've done and how they've accomplished that. And it was one of the best games that Bethesda ever put out.
Absolutely,
one of the few, to be honest, but one of the best. And this series, might be actually, some people say that it's the next iteration of the game. There's information on it, but we'll see next week.
Well, I will say, and this is a big tease, and honest to God, I cannot say a word about it apart from saying yes, the interviews yesterday that I did were for Fallout.
Good.
And the interview embargo lifts tomorrow morning. So tomorrow morning, I will be contributing interview stuff on Forbes not for Forbes. I got to be careful. I'm a contributor for Forbes. So let's just say that the Fallout begins tomorrow.
Can you say who you interviewed?
I suppose I could. Yeah.
Did you talk to Todd Howard?
No, I know. His name was mentioned quite a bit yesterday.
Yeah, well, he's sort of
he's the guy,
the driving force or the head of Bethesda Studios, and I just don't, and I don't know how much of his head went into the creativity. So much of these are giant teams that create this stuff, but there's got to be one point person who says this is the design, and they have all the teams that say, now start bringing this stuff to us. Let's just take a look at this, because it'll take them 10 years to write a game like this.
Yeah. Well, and then, from what I understand now, Tim Kaine actually is the creator of the game, but that Todd Howard, you say?
Todd Howard is the head of Bethesda Labs.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the
it's like sort of like with the third game, apparently, is when he really kicked it into high gear, apparently.
Yeah.
So again, I'm kind of talking around things, but my Fallout coverage as
there's been multiple iterations of the game.
Well, yeah, Tim Kaine is the guy who created Fallout, as in Fallout 1.
Right.
That was back in the Interplay days.
Okay.
And now it's being made by Bethesda, which is a completely different company.
Okay.
So Tim Kaine created the universe. He created the lore and all that.
Oh, Tim Howard did?
Tim Kaine.
Oh, Tim Kaine.
But the last game he helped with was Fallout 2. So starting with Fallout 3, it's been all Bethesda, Todd Howard, etc.
Okay. And the most recent one is Fallout 4.
Well, technically Fallout 76, but
Fallout 7.
We don't talk about Fallout 76
because it was an online game.
Fallout Las Vegas too.
Fallout New Vegas was after 3. Yes.
Okay.
And people love New Vegas.
So one of the tropes of the game or the story is that they will they use a different city. And one of the speculate, well, what's the next city they're going to use? You know, they've used Boston, they've used Washington D.C., they've used Las Vegas. What's the next city that they will be in? So it's just in, and then they design the ruins all based on the city and the geography of the city.
Minneapolis.
Well, Resident Evil's the same way too, aren't they? Wasn't there a
Resident Evil is, I think it's all fictional. I don't know about I kind of dropped off with the lore after a while, but I know for a fact in the very beginning it was all in Raccoon City, which isn't a real place.
Well, let me just show you this. And the reason I say that is this is one of my favorite doodads from Resident Evil Extinction. And it's got a sand thing. And I do believe it's in Vegas. Kind of a cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So that's all I know about that. Again, you know, I'm a movie guy. I'm a TV streaming guy, whatever. So most of my knowledge is of those sorts of projects and not so much the video games. My kids have played all the video games naturally, but I'm a Pong guy.
Going
back a bit.
You know, you should get a bobblehead. Forbes should be able to get you a bobblehead. That's the Fallout bobblehead, which is the little
Vault Boy.
Vault Boy.
Yep.
That's what you have.
My son.
There he is.
There it is, right
Vault
there.
Boy.
There's Vault Boy.
Yeah. So it's cool. It's an introduction to a new world for me. And the reason I brought up the Fallout Vegas is just because I wanted to play it a little bit to kind of get a sense of what the whole world is about. And so, that's so I'm just a novice when it comes to video game stuff, but it sounds like you guys,
do your kids
all in.
Do your kids have a subscription to Steam?
Oh yeah.
Everyone's got Steam.
Pull it down and play just what, I would just recommend loading it and just watching the intro of the first 5 seconds, first minute or so, the actual loading screen. Watch that completely through. It has the music, the haunting music.
Fallout?
Yeah, Fallout. Watch that, and then watch the intro. And I think that sets the stage as to the feel of the whole thing. I mean, you don't have to play the game. It's great if you like games, but that first, I watched the intro screen video to its fullest today. And I just was like, man, did they do a good job.
Guarantee you they'll say war never changes.
The cool thing is, and Andy, maybe you knew this already. I just never thought that you're such a big gamer, Ralph. This is kind of cool.
Oh, that's a sickness. It's I started with Zelda, and I've played I don't know how many first-person shooters and role-playing games, and I've been on the EVE Online. So I played a lot.
You played a lot of EVE.
But what's so interesting is that I also write code, and when you're writing code, it's exactly like a video game. There's a bug.
Yep.
It's just like solving a video game. It's a fascinating parallel, and I get the same satisfaction out of that as well. So you get a bug in your code, and you're wandering around trying to find it. You're not shooting imps, but you're looking at code, and it's a fascinating kind of a thing.
It's the same kind of logic puzzle that you see in a lot of games.
Right. It's a linear logic puzzle.
It's like this part doesn't fit, but where do I put it so it does fit?
There you go.
And then I can unlock the door and go on to the next thing.
Right. I can unlock the door. I can unlock the door. That's right. Press the button.
I think to a different degree, that's what I love about writing, is figuring out the puzzle aspect, what works best and all that sort of thing. And, talking about my sickness, you could probably see it in the background. I mean, I love the Universal Monster stuff. I'm an action figure guy, so that's my sickness. So we all have that, and we all need that, and we all love that because it does take you away from the madness of everyday life. That's certainly the case for me anyway. It's like
everyone's
got my hobby,
Yeah.
That's why you needed a Vault Boy. I want to make certain that you had a Vault Boy, and maybe they have bigger ones now. Maybe they have life-size Vault Boys. Boy, there you'd have some.
I do know there are action figures coming out from the series.
That's great. Great.
Yeah.
Well, is it the first video game that's going to be franchised with action figures? Maybe not.
No. Halo. When my
Halo
oldest son was younger, he was, I started getting him obviously I'm an action figure guy. I know about all this stuff, but getting him the Halo action figures and stuff like that. Yeah, no, I think there've been several. What's the other one that, there was a movie a few years back, and Joe from Louisville, he loved the movie. I didn't think so much of it. Gosh, Joe, you're gonna have to call in or send a message or something.
He's on chat right now. So,
a
video game movie?
Yes,
from a couple years ago.
Well, the series, the Halo series is out.
Yeah, the Halo series is out, but there've been other movies or video game series. It seems like, and I just oddly enough wrote an article for Forbes about how video games are making a gain. Video game adaptations in films are making a gain on superhero.
Yeah, the Mario movie did tons of money.
That may be the case. Maybe that's what's going to happen. They need a new genre, so this is going to be it.
Yeah, well, there was the Mario movie that was last year, and then, or maybe 2 years ago, and then there was the Sonic movie.
Yes.
And Joe says, "Are you talking about Warcraft?"
Warcraft. That's the one.
There you go. Warcraft. That's one of my first games I ever played was the first Warcraft game, and it's been part of my life forever. But I've never actually seen the Warcraft movie.
Yeah, I did, and I just mentioning as far as superhero, the genre. Last year in 2023, and this is ComScore that came out with this info. They did $1 billion in business, a lot of money, right? Yep. 2018, 3.3 billion. So they've fallen way off, and then video game stuff was just really, really low, like 160 million or whatever back 5 years ago. Now it's in, $700 million in the box office for video game adaptations. And again, in large part to Super Mario, but it does tell you that there is a thirst for that sort of content out there.
That's right.
In show houses and on streaming.
Well, for years and years, video game movies were just awful.
Oh, that's true. And
some of the worst movies ever made were video game adaptation movies.
And this series that's coming out, it could be awful. So
it could be awful. You never know.
We'll see.
I do believe I'll be able to talk about it next week. So we'll pick up on that next Tuesday.
But unfortunately, Ralph's not going to be here next week, so you're going to miss out on that one.
Ralph, give me a call next Tuesday.
Okay. Tomorrow, are you going to be able to report on it?
Yeah, tomorrow? I mean, and I'll certainly be sharing all that on social media. So yes, you'll get my coverage, interview coverage of Fallout starting tomorrow morning.
The one thing about Halo, and particularly the series, is that the original Halo was played, or the story was on a ring world.
The Halo, yeah.
The Halo.
Just a big ring.
And the ring world is a sci-fi concept developed by Larry Niven in his book Ring World, or a series of books Ring World. Now the series, I looked at the trailer, I couldn't see the ring world. So they've taken it out of the ring world, because you should, when you're looking, you should always see the world in front of you going up to the sky.
I know I haven't actually really played that much Halo and paid that much attention to it, but I do know that the Halo, which is the world that you're talking about, the ring world, the Halo is a super weapon that can blow up galaxies or something. And at some point it almost got fired, but it got blown up instead. So the Halo, I'm pretty sure the Halo array is just gone.
Okay,
it's still called Halo.
Halo, but so that was part of in the game.
Yes,
in the game storyline.
Yeah, there's this like race of aliens called the Flood that just basically they're like the Borg. They just go in and kill everyone, assimilate, that sort of thing. So there's this Halo array. You turn the Halo array on, it blows up the universe because up yours Flood.
Yeah.
But people decided, hey, I don't think I want the universe to explode.
The only thing I know about it is Master Chief.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to read the series, the Ringworld series by Larry Niven, see exactly how that story plays out, and then of course play the games, and then see how that story plays out, and see if there's any parallel. Because just like in movies, there is going to be poetic justice taken.
Oh, absolutely.
Whenever they do these sort of things, they change things so that the story's a little bit better for movies. Yeah, that's a fascinating kind of thing, because the book, The Ringworld, has a number of other concepts, and I can't recommend it highly enough. As far as, and it's never been made into a movie. It has never been made into a movie. That's what fascinates me. But it has these unbelievable sci-fi concepts about breeding programs by some advanced alien race. The breeding program on Earth was to breed someone for luck.
Huh. Now you're talking Halo movie?
No, I'm talking about Ringworld, the book.
Oh, okay, Ringworld.
And also there's this advanced society is trying to escape the destruction of their Milky Way, but they weren't advanced enough to understand what when they came across the Halo world, they weren't advanced enough to understand that. So this was even more advanced than this advanced thing who are doing the breeding programs on the planet. It's the whole thing is just mind-boggling when you read it through.
Well, I do know that Peter Jackson at one point was trying to get a Halo movie made.
Okay.
And yeah. I mean, a lot of these big name directors. I mean, I know Sam Raimi's name was attached to Warcraft at one point too. It's just
well, they're gamers, I bet.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to just the number of cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah,
when you have all these. Again, the directors getting clout. I mean, and I think Peter Jackson and Sam Raimi, they don't both have tremendous clout, but it always comes down to the money people and people bringing in different ideas and all that. And at some point they just say, you know what, this is not the vision that I brought in.
Right.
Do you have time for a phone call?
Sure. I certainly do.
We got Joe.
Hey, there we go. Hey, baby.
Oh, there he is.
What would you guys like to know about Halo?
So how far off was I with my summary of the whole Halo array, etc. thing?
You told it perfectly. What happens is, according to, there are some novels that have been released, putting in a lot of backstory into what we don't see in the video games.
Right.
The ship Forward Unto Dawn had to jump away from battle, and they did a blind jump, and that's when they ran into the first Halo array. That's the first video game.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see the Halo yet in the series because they haven't come across it yet. Everything that's happening in the series right now is kind of what's from the lore in the books, but not really. It's kind of it's a different universe, but things are the same.
So it's almost like a prequel, but it's an alternate universe prequel.
Right.
Huh. Well, there you go. Hence, no Halo.
There.
From what I understand, at the end of this season is when they come across the Halo array and the Flood.
Uh-oh. So we're going to get into Halo 1 territory then.
Yep.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
I would not have time for anything else if I got interested in games.
There's so much. It's insane how much lore there is behind some of these games. And Halo is one of them where you could probably read for 50 hours about the backstories of all these people and all the things that happen. It's as rich as any sci-fi novel universe ever
That's
made.
right. And same with Dune.
Yeah, exactly.
Same
the same
with Dune.
thing. It's if you really wanted to get into the minutia, you could pore over it for many, many months. But most people, they never, they don't really care about that sort of thing. They'd rather just play through the games or watch the movies or whatever, and what you see on the surface is good enough.
Well, as you all know, my dream is to live in a cave to get away from society. Maybe then I can start pouring into this stuff. Of course, I'll have to have Wi-Fi in my cave.
Only to download it. Only once you're loaded. You don't have to have that hookup.
Yeah, just download Wikipedia and then there you go. It's like 180 gigabytes or something. No problem.
Yeah, there you go. So, well, guys, I got to run, but good to talk. Hey, Joe, good to hear from you, and Ralph and Andy, good to talk with you, and we'll talk about Fallout stuff in greater detail next time around.
All right. Perfect.
All right. Have a great day, guys.
Bye. What was that, Joe?
I was just wondering when the articles are published.
Oh, yeah. He unfortunately had to go. He stuck around for extra time today due to Tom's absence. But all
right, I'll drop him on later.
Perfect.
So right now there are at the very least 26 books in the Halo
26 books.
Huh.
26.
Well, it's like Star Wars. How many? There have to be 100 Star Wars books.
There's over 150 from the original extended universe.
There you go. And then there's like the different levels of canon. Yeah, it's insane. If you really want to, you can immerse yourself in these worlds. Well, we were talking about Warcraft. There's like on the surface, it's like, green guys killing humans, humans killing green guys. And that's how it started. But then you get into like alternate dimensions and alternate timelines. The orc dimension was blown up, but then they went back in time to the orc dimension where it wasn't blown up so that they could kill this demon from outer space. And it's just like at some point it kind of becomes overwhelming. It's like, what the hell am I even looking at?
Well, that's true. And if you look at Fallout, and you look at Starfield, and if you look at Oblivion, if you look at all those, people have connected all three of the games. This is a timeline of all these games, and there's connections between one to the other, even though there's hundreds or thousands of years in between. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting aspect of that, and maybe that's the end of that part of the entertainment of games is going to come through in the movies, and they're going to have these because you can start turning out these movies based on the game and with prequels and postquels or sequels and all that sort of stuff.
Well, yeah, the Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of made that a thing. So every movie has to be connected to every other movie in some way, and then you have this grand finale where everyone comes together.
Doing that decades before MCU.
That's true, but it's like the version of Star Wars for the new generation. Yeah. It's like it got them reinterested in all the movies being connected. Because Star Wars had been doing that for ages, but I don't know. MCU kind of went a little too far with it, I would say. Because it's like every movie almost becomes just like a bunch of references to every other movie.
Yeah.
So it's like, I like the whole connected universe thing. I'm the kind of person where that's why I actually know about the lore of Halo is one day I was like, I don't know anything about Halo despite it being this thing for basically my entire life. And so I just started reading the Halo wiki, and I was like, who is Master Chief? What is the Halo array? What is the Flood? And I just spent hours reading about this stuff because I was interested in it. I have not played any of the games, haven't seen the show, but sometimes the lore is interesting.
Oh yeah, what is? Yeah, it's a sci-fi story that it's just like anything else. It's just a sci-fi story that they're spinning, and sometimes better than others. Yeah,
it's surprisingly compelling for a game that was basically just tall man shoot aliens.
Yeah, and when you're playing a game is different than watching a movie because you have a certain sense of outcome, and some of the games now have a certain sense of direction depending on what you've chosen to do or who you've chosen to align with or join and that sort of stuff. So you have actual direction. Mm-hmm. The online games are like that. EVE Online, if you're playing, you can join a corporation, or you can be by yourself, or you could be a pirate, or you could be a miner, or you can transport goods, or you can be a banker. You could be a banker in that, or an insurer. You can develop your own insurance agency there with your own actuaries and things like that. Yeah, so it's a fascinating kind of a thing, and availability of a variety of characters.
It's called emergent gameplay. It's like the game wasn't designed for you to become an investment banker in space, but if you want to play it that way, you can do that, and you can make money doing it.
That's right.
Because ultimately, it's about spaceships blowing each other up.
That's right. But you can make. It's interesting. You can make actual money.
Yes, you can.
In dollars from that game.
Oh, because people have been buying online currency forever.
Yep.
World of Warcraft, people were buying gold a week after it came out, because if you get more gold, you can get the more powerful equipment, which gives you an edge on everyone else. So so if you wanted to, you could just find the best way to make gold and start selling it to other players. And I mean, technically it's illegal and you'll get banned if you get caught, but you can do it.
Yeah.
It's basically like being a drug dealer.
You can be a gold merchant.
Yeah.
Diamond merchant,
gold merchant.
You know, that's involved.
They actually have a different way you can purchase gold through the game.
Yep.
You can buy what's called a WoW token.
Yep.
For $20,
and sell it for gold. Yep.
Sell for several 100,000 gold.
Yep. They basically made gold selling legal, which I'm not super happy about.
Not outside people outside the game. That's still illegal.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, if I want gold, I can just buy a WoW token and sell it, and there you go. Now I'm rich.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I don't know. It's you're intermingling the real world and the fake world. Keep it apart, I say.
you say, well, I don't know. I think you bring it together.
No.
You know, and that's
Second Life.
That's the comment about Eve, is that they've had these conflagrations where there'll be thousands of starships, some of the most expensive or most complex starships in that universe, and they will burn through $250,000-$300,000 worth of real money when they go through these sort of fights, or these giant conflagrations in the universe there.
Because in Eve, you lose your starship, it's not coming back. It's gone.
It is gone, and so you have to go work some more to get it. And then the other part of this is that there's a second level where if they kill you, then you lose whatever implants you've had. There's other pieces
they pod
that they pod you. Then you go back, you repod it, but then you have nothing that you had before except for some money the in-game money.
Yeah.
And then you have to start buying and working and doing all that sort of stuff, or putting money into the game, buying currency in the game, and then heading back in. So it's expensive to play.
All right, Joe.
Most games are.
Yes, that is true. Most games are. All right, we're going to part at this point because I've gotten a lot of requests on social media to talk about my thyroid diagnosis. So,
all right, I'll talk to you.
Take care, Joe.
Yep.
Tune in. Take care.
You too. All right, so let me just drop. There we go. So on, what was it? Friday, maybe? I think Melissa posted on Facebook. I'm sure pretty much everyone listening knows at this point, but for those of you who don't know, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer 1 week ago. Papillary carcinoma, it's called, which they call the good kind of cancer because the 5-year survival rate is extremely high. And I'm young enough that it's technically it can't be past stage 2 because it's just so slow growing that at my age, even if it's metastasized, it's apparently not a big deal. I mean, unforeseen things can always happen, but at this point, my odds of survival, my odds of being cured are quite high, which is not something you say with cancer very often.
Yeah, extremely high with this. I mean, it's so unusual based in your age group. And then how'd you find the lump?
So that's the interesting thing so another thing that people who pay attention to my life might know about is that I had this gallbladder thing last year. So about a year ago, I was just sick all the time. I stopped eating. I lost a ton of weight and I had this lump in my throat. And the doctors basically just kept saying, oh, well, we need to adjust your PPIs, which is like Nexium, omeprazole, that kind of thing. What's the generic? Prilosec.
Okay.
Nexium and Prilosec and everything. So we'll adjust your PPIs and, you'll get better. And I didn't get better. So I got eventually it turned out it was my gallbladder. I got that out, and now I do feel a lot better. But this lump in my throat never went away. So what they did is they had me go to a general surgeon for a acid reflux surgery. And when I was talking to him, I was like, there's this lump in my throat and it really feels like there's something in there. Can we just get it looked at just in case? And he's like, there's almost no chance there's actually anything in there, but I think it's still a good idea to scan it. So I went in for an ultrasound, and lo and behold, there's this lump on my thyroid that has probably been pressing on my throat for the past year. And I wouldn't have known about it otherwise. So
they didn't feel your throat?
You can't palpate this. It's inferior, and it's in the back a little bit. So even after they found it on the ultrasound, they tried to find it palpating my throat, and they were like, can't see it. It's also relatively small. It's an inch across, which, for a thyroid is, actually pretty big, but these things can get 3-4 inches across before you actually start noticing them. Because the thing about thyroid cancer, especially the kind I have, is that it doesn't really produce symptoms because it's so slow growing and it's so well differentiated that oftentimes people will die with it never knowing it existed.
Oh, yeah.
So if it's on the front, you can feel it.
Right.
If it's in the back, it'll press on your trachea and you'll feel it that way.
Sense. You get that sense.
Exactly. And that's how I felt it. So people wanted to know how I found it. People always want to know, how did you find this? Because it's, people worry about that sort of thing. And for me, it was just this lump in my throat feeling when I swallow. It feels like there's something stuck in my throat. And that could actually be a complete coincidence. We don't know that this is what's causing that feeling yet. And we won't know until I get it out. And if the feeling goes away once I get it out, then that's what it was. So it could have been a complete coincidence. And it is important to note that if you have that lump in your throat, 99% of the time, you're not going to have thyroid cancer. Usually it is acid reflux, which is why all the doctors kept treating it as if it was acid reflux. Usually it's just acid splashes up against your esophagus and makes you feel like you got a lump in your throat. So if you got a lump in your throat, I wouldn't worry too much about it. It probably isn't thyroid cancer. And if you're worried about other symptoms, well, like I said, there's really not very many symptoms aside from a visible lump in the front of your throat. So if you got one of those, I would talk to a doctor. But even then, usually it's a goiter, which does mean you have to get your thyroid out a lot of the time. But,
goiter, anything hyperthyroidism, they generally treat with radioactive iodine.
Well, yeah, it depends on the cause of the goiter.
Yeah,
and the location.
Sure.
Right. Like if it's pressing on blood vessels or nerves or something like that, they might or they'll do a lobectomy. They won't take the whole thyroid out because there's no reason to, really.
So are they going to do a total thyroidectomy for you?
Total thyroidectomy. So they're going to take the whole thing out. I've debated on whether or not I want that, because once you got your thyroid out, you're going to be taking thyroid medication for the rest of your life, because what your thyroid does is it produces hormones, which are extremely important. So you got to take that pill, once your thyroid's gone. But the thing about even thyroid cancer, even this papillary carcinoma, very slow growing thing, it still can come back. And when it does, what you want is to catch it as early as possible. And I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of all the little tests they do, but basically, if you only have half of your thyroid out, it makes some of these tests not possible. It's like a blood hormone test. So if you have half of your thyroid still, they can't do that test. Not really. It's unreliable. Whereas if you have your whole thyroid out, you just get this blood test done every 6 months. And if it comes back, you know about it right away. Right. No problem.
Yeah. Are they planning on doing a radioactive iodine?
We don't know yet.
Okay. Sure.
They're going to be dissecting lymph nodes, of course, and seeing if it's in those.
Yeah, that's when you any local spread, they would do it as sort of
a precaution.
Yeah, the precautionary kind of a thing.
Right. So I mean, that I won't know until after the surgery, right, because they want to do as few surgeries as possible. So they're not going to go like do my thyroid one day and take the lymph nodes out the other day and that sort of thing. So it's just going to be one fell swoop in mid-May, and then we'll find out if I need to do the iodine. I mean, odds are I probably will, unfortunately, but
But the iodine is, they give you the dose. You might feel run down for a while. It's not. It's a single dose by and large, and that's the end of it. I mean, it's really, your cure rate is so very high. It was surgery alone, but then with the iodine, if you need it.
Yeah. So if people don't know, which most people probably don't know what the hell we're talking about, radioactive iodine. So iodine it goes to your thyroid, basically. When you eat iodine, usually from iodized salt these days, it goes into your thyroid. So if you make it radioactive, it is going to go into any thyroid cells you have left in your body. So if you don't have a thyroid, you take up this radioactive iodine, and if there are metastases somewhere, it'll uptake this radioactive iodine and then basically die because now it's radioactive.
That's right. The particles and the gamma rays, and it's mostly particles that are released, kill the cells that have been absorbed with, and that's the end of it. I mean, I'm sorry, I made a huge physiologic leap from not doing I didn't give the backstory of the thyroid and how the physiology, how it works.
Well, a lot of people don't know. They don't know where your thyroid is. I mean, if you ask the average person on the street, 10 people, maybe 3 or 4 would know where the hell the thyroid is, and maybe 5 would know what it does.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people know about hypothyroidism because it's fairly common. But not a lot of people really know. I mean, I didn't know where the thyroid was until probably 6-7 years ago, which despite, all the medical knowledge I have, it's just one of those things you don't think about till you have to think about it.
That's right. It's not like the thymus gland. Thymus gland. That's what sweetbreads are. They're calf thymus glands. Your thymus gland goes away. So
tasty.
It's in the same area, but it's a little bit lower and that sort of stuff. So, but the thyroid, it just metabolizes iodine, and that's for the hormone.
Produces thyroid hormone.
Yep, the thyroid hormone. And then the thyroid hormone, for a thing about taking the pills after you've had a total thyroidectomy, or if you've had radioactive iodine to kill your thyroid or trash your thyroid, it's a cheap med, and if you miss a day, it's not that big a deal because it sticks in your body for a long time.
It's like 4 weeks, I think, is the half-life of this.
So if you miss a dose, it's not like some medications where you miss a dose, your symptoms can go back pretty quick.
One thing I was wondering, I did, of course, do the research on it, but I was wondering, it's like, okay, so you don't have a thyroid, you got to take this thyroid hormone. What happens if the supply chain gets interrupted? You can't get it, or, something like that. World War breaks out. Or what happens if your thyroid craps out 200 years ago before we could synthesize thyroid hormone? And I found something interesting. What you do is you eat thyroid glands. When you slaughter a pig, usually you eat the muscle, and maybe some people would eat the heart or whatever. But if you have hypothyroidism in the long ago times, you just take the pig's thyroid gland and you eat it, and there you go. There's your dose of thyroid hormone for the next week or whatever. Yeah, exactly. You saute it up. Why not?
On rice or on mashed potatoes. Boy, that is an internal organ that I have not heard much culinary discussions about.
Well, usually what they do is they'll dessicate it and powder it because I don't think it tastes terribly good. So, but yeah,
might be a bit bitter with the iodine.
Yeah, exactly.
In it.
So yeah, that's an interesting thing. It's like, in all the worst case scenario, I just start eating pig thyroids.
Yeah, you got to go.
Delicious.
Raising pigs, or any animal thyroid. Yeah, any animal thyroid you can eat. Yeah. Cow thyroid's bigger, so maybe you could freeze part of it, and that sort of stuff, and you can.
Darren wants to know: is a goiter caused from iodine deficiency or too much? It would be deficiency.
Deficiency. Yeah.
Iodine, I don't think you can technically have too much of.
Yeah. Oh, you can.
Well, if you eat like an insane amount.
And what I don't know what the symptoms of are too much iodine.
Hyperiodinosis. I never even heard of it.
Yeah. I don't remember. I can't remember, and I didn't do the research of eating too much iodine. But if you have too little, that's why we have iodized salt, because you want that continuous supply of iodine for your thyroid. Otherwise, it becomes overactive, grows in size, and that's how you get a goiter, which is just a goiter is just an enlarged thyroid gland, so that your throat looks very big.
Mm-hmm. It's just a big lump in your throat.
Yeah, big lump in your throat, but it's also visible. It's a visible kind of a thing.
Yeah, but so iodine like you said, that's why we have iodized salt, is because it's actually fairly difficult to get in a standard modern diet. And that's why a lot of people had hypothyroidism for all in the years past, is because they didn't iodize salt. So now they just put iodine in salt. So every time you eat salt, you're getting some iodine, and it makes your thyroid work. There you go.
Iodine should be in vegetables, fresh vegetables, things like that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't eat those things, though.
Oh, well,
that's why I said the modern diet, which doesn't include a whole lot of fresh vegetables. Unfortunately,
it includes a lot of McDonald's.
Yeah, they got tomatoes on there. It's probably some iodine. Maybe a leaf of lettuce.
Leaf of lettuce. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't get that. They make sure that you don't get any of that.
That is true.
Take all that off there. We just want the starch and the protein.
That is true.
Yeah. Well,
so let's see. What have I not covered yet? We talked about the prognosis. Very good.
Very good. Surgery.
I mean, I'll know more in May once they take it out. They're going to biopsy it. They're going to look at the lymph nodes and that sort of thing. But odds are virtually 100% that I'm going to be.
The biggest hassle with the total thyroidectomy is leaving your parathyroid glands. And the parathyroid glands are key in calcium metabolism in your body, and you got to have those.
Technically, it's magnesium metabolism, right?
I thought it was
related. They turn magnesium into calcium or something like that.
No, they're not. No, they're not alchemists. They don't have the philosopher's stone.
Transmutation.
There's no transmutation.
But it's something like that.
But that overall, that metabolism, that physiology is related to the parathyroid.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to have your parathyroids, and a goodly portion of your surgery is going to be making sure they find those parathyroids, and they're not. It's not an easy thing to see. I mean, they're a little bit different colored, a little bit different texture than thyroid tissue, and that's going to be a goodly part of the time to make sure we leave a couple of those parathyroid glands.
Well, this guy is actually, as a complete coincidence, a specialist in thyroid surgery. And he's been doing them for like 30 years or something like that. So, it's pretty good odds, I'd say.
But still, they'll do it. But the thyroid hormone is not a big deal.
No.
Parathyroid treatment and calcium, that is a huge hassle.
Yeah, if the parathyroid thing goes wrong, you apparently have to take like 9 calcium pills a day.
So you have to eat pig bone.
So that'd be, there you go. Pig thyroids, pig bone. Bones. Just eat the whole pig. It'll be all right. Just eat 1 pig per day.
Yeah.
Grind it up.
Or you just go to Cargo. You can get the byproduct, stuff that comes out the back door.
Oh, yeah.
They throw away. You could be using that stuff.
It's dumpster dive. So let's see. Yes. We talked to people wanted me to talk about how I discovered it. I did that, how it's going to go, that sort of thing.
The surgery is pretty straightforward. It's really straightforward. Small incision in the front of your neck. If you wear a necklace afterwards, you can't see the incision.
I'm not really worried about scars, to be honest.
It's not an owner. Or a deforming kind of a scar. And the risk of complications is very small, aside from the physiologic complications we talked about. But it's not that big. It's not that deep in there. It's not that long of an incision. It just takes time to make certain you leave those parathyroids, and they whip it out pretty quick. Take a couple of those lymph nodes out, send it all off, and then you wait a week, and then they'll say, "Here you go." And here's the whole plan now.
Mm-hmm. So they all know.
So the final staging of any kind of tumor is related to what the tumor looks like under a microscope, where it's moved to. So if it's in the lymph nodes, that's another part of the staging. Mm-hmm. But then the last part is if it's spread to distant sites in your body, whether it's gone to your lungs or to God forbid, and that's so rare.
Papillary metastasizing to the lungs is very rare. Usually it has to be in there for a very, very long time for that to happen. If it ever happens.
That's it's just not, but that's the kind of thing. That's the whole idea about staging. And you can try to stage it before you do the surgery, but it's really the surgery, taking those pieces out or doing the appropriate biopsies to get that final staging. Once you have the final staging, then all of the chemotherapy, all of the treatment regimens have been sort of sorted out through multi-center studies. And that's why cancer treatment is so much better now than it was 20, 30 years ago. I remember my grandmother had lymphoma. She had chemotherapy. All her hair fell out.
Yep.
But that was one of the first chemotherapy treatments. She didn't, she delayed her surmise, but that she passed as a result of that. Mm-hmm. As a result of that disease. Now, a lot of lymphomas are cured. A lot of the leukemias are cured. I mean,
when I was a kid, kid being the leukemia kid in your school, it was like, he's probably not going to live to be 12 years old. But nowadays, they've got them pretty much cured.
Yeah.
And for a long time, up until, I don't know, maybe even 20 years ago, they did not use the term cured when it comes to cancer. They'd say it went into remission. It's been treated, but that doesn't mean it's gone.
Now they will use that word.
Yeah, it's interesting how quickly things have changed in just my relatively short lifetime.
That's right.
Well, I've got, let's see, trends in 5-year cancer survival, 1971 to 2015. 1971 skin cancer went from 53% to 92%.
Wow.
Breast cancer, very similar, 53 to 86. Prostate was only 37 in 71, and now it's 88.
Wow.
So this is, 40 years.
Huge changes. And it has to do with newer kind of drugs, newer kind of understanding. Immunotherapy is coming online more and more, and then customized treatments or customized genetic treatments are coming online more and more for all these things. And it's
not to mention detection. I mean, in 71, did they even have CTs? I don't think they did. It has to have been brand new in the 70s.
It was very close, but I think that was.
But they didn't have MRIs.
Well, I'm trying to think. I started in medical. No, 71. It was close. But when I was in medical school, they had CT scans.
Let's see. The first commercially available CT scanner was in 72.
It was 72.
So there you go.
So it was available when I was in medical school, but it was brand new technology when I was in medical school. Whenever I was in college, no, it wasn't available. So it was just regular X-rays.
And now we got the MRI. That's a much newer technology.
Enhanced CT scans, enhanced MRIs. I mean, just there's all sorts of studies and scans. There was radioactive scanning before CT scans, where they just shoot you up with a bunch of radioactive material, see where it goes, and if it didn't go to the right place, well, they say, oh, well, that's where the tumor is. I mean, that was another those scans.
It'd be interesting to see what medicine's like in another 50 years.
Oh yeah,
we're probably going to look back at what we have, like we're cavemen, hitting each other with rocks to diagnose problems.
Yeah, it should be much better, and maybe they'll get some understanding of the brain. I mean, they have an infantile.
That we still have.
They have infantile understanding of the brain.
Well, if you look at how they treat mental illness, it's basically just like take a pill and see what happens. If it's not good, take a different pill. See what happens.
There you go. Let's give you these 2 pills.
Yeah. What if we combine these 2 pills?
I mean, it is sad. I mean, that is a true sadness, and it's hard to sort through. It's hard to sort through mental illness. That is,
it sure is,
because there's no great solutions to the problem. And in psychotherapy, helps with the basic kind, but with the serious kind, psychosis, schizophrenia, things like that, it just doesn't work as well.
No, the only way we have to look at neurons and dendrites and stuff like that is to cut them out and look at them under a microscope, and
that's right.
You can't exactly do that on a living patient.
Of course, now they're starting to do the neuro implants. So that's a whole nother space age kind of a thing.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to live in a world where mental illness doesn't exist, if that ever happens.
Wow. I wonder how much crime will reduce.
Yeah, for real. Arguably all of it, because that's where I would say most of it comes from. All right. Well, I think that will do it for this episode. We won't be doing the family tomorrow, but we will be doing it on Thursday. Jimmy Francis is going to be in. Gelfan's going to be in, and Jimmy's got a special guest he's bringing in. I don't know if I'm supposed to say who it is yet.
I wouldn't.
No,
I wouldn't. You're sworn to secrecy, I'm certain.
I signed that NDA. Can't breach it. All right. Well, we will talk to you tomorrow on the morning show. And if you are a family-only listener, we'll talk to you on Thursday.
Take care.
Every time I hear the same, it reminds me how you talk in my door.